That's the single thing that drives me the most crazy about the modern left.
What's that?
Is that they are so impassioned about the injustices in the world when there's a damn Republican at the helm.
Yeah.
When there's a Democrat at the helm, they couldn't care less.
Mm-hmm.
They just sweep it under the rug. Okay, it's Sunday, July 14th, 2019. You're back at the Libation Station.
Pull up a seat.
The state has decided...
Pour yourself something bracing.
We'll pour ourselves something bracing
right.
for sure.
Even.
The state has decided that it is God, and Vincent Lambert and others will pay the price. Children's museums across the country won't shut up or put up. Former ICE director Thomas Holman opens a can on a couple of freshman Congress members, and Justin Amash declares independence from re-election.
And that is the lineup on the episode 10.
Episode 10.
Episode 10 of Barney and Clyde.
Congratulations. Let's celebrate.
Yes. And what do we got here?
This is, as you know, all of you regular enthusiasts of the Barney and Clyde show know that we always start with some kind of refreshing beverage. We often do this in the morning or afternoon, so we tend to have coffee or something like that. But we always have something nice. But once in a while, we get together during cocktail hour, and we have something a little more
with a little
grown
more
up
horsepower to it. Yes.
And again, these products that we sample aren't. They're not endorsing us. We're not really endorsing them. We just enjoy it. So this is La Fin du Monde. It is a Belgian-style, I think the Trappist-style ale from Canada.
All right.
It is Canada's most awarded beer.
Okay.
And it's brewed in that that Belgian style, the monk
style,
which is where they would ferment in the vessels.
Some of those recipes go back to the 1400s.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Abbey beer,
maybe even further back than that, yeah. And but they would do a second conditioning in the bottle, so it ferments basically twice. It ferments in the in the fermenter or the cask, and then it ferments some more in the bottle.
Indeed,
so they tend to come out quite strong. You don't think there's very much there. Let's bring you up here a little bit.
Okay. Well, okay.
And what's interesting about this being
Episode
a Sunday
10.
in Indiana?
Until recently, were we the very last? One of the last states to have a blue law to prohibit sales of spirituous beverages on Sunday.
That's right. So you couldn't buy beer or any type of liquor or wine or anything like that, any alcohol, on a Sunday.
Right. You had to look in the fridge on Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening and say, well, boy, I better run to the store tonight.
This is how government always gets it right, because you could drive to a bar and drink alcohol at the bar and drive home, right?
On a Sunday afternoon.
On a Sunday afternoon. Yeah, starting at like 11 a.m.
Sure.
But you couldn't go to a beer store or a grocery store and just buy a 6-pack or 12-pack and take it home.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I'm sure that the amount of drunk driving that the government produced by doing that is staggering.
Yeah. I think it was just, in large part, a case of a law, an antiquated law that had not been revisited for a long time, and somebody got around to saying, nobody else is doing this anymore. We ought to...
And not to bust your haggis too much, but I can't imagine that was a law that was not brought to us by conservatives.
No, I think you're exactly right. Yeah, I'm sure that there were various religious activists in the 1800s involved in instituting such laws. And, it's a real silly...
you still can't buy a car on Sunday in Indiana, right?
Oh, really? I didn't know about that.
Maybe it's not in place anymore, but there was a time when you could not buy a car on Sunday because it's against the law. Those were our two blue laws: alcohol and automobiles. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Well, as we say, this is episode 10, and we're really pleased. We feel like we've built up a credible body of work so far, and
I think so.
And it's the Barney and Clyde podcast, and what we do is we examine things on the nation's plate, the world's plate, the culture's plate, from a libertarian perspective and a conservative perspective. And if you drew a Venn diagram, there'd be quite a bit of overlap but there's places outside of it.
Yep.
Yeah, and so yeah.
So going forward from there, I think we're about to maybe get into waters where there might be some disagreement between us, where the Venn diagram diverges. But I think that the bulk of this conversation about when the state decides to play God, I think most of this conversation will be in our convergence area.
Okay. Yeah, we generally we have 3 or 4 segments, and we're developing some that we've done a segment under that name many times. Today we're trying out a few new ones. When the state becomes your God, and that's something that bears a lot of examination right now. Anyway, the first case where that seems to be borne out recently. What is it? Tell us about it.
Vincent Lambert, I guess is how you place it. When you read his name, it looks like Vincent Lambert, but he's French.
Right.
And the French government healthcare system has decided it's time to pull the plug on him. So do you want to give that some background, maybe?
Well, he was a very normal person. He was rendered quadriplegic in some kind of a mishap in 2008.
Okay.
And has been in a state. He can't feed himself, certainly, but he shows or speak. But he shows emotion, and his whole family and dear ones have stuck by him and go see him all the time.
Right.
And
clearly, there are lights on and somebody's home.
You bet. And he's not in declining health given the state he's in. He wasn't like at the end of his days or anything like that. But the highest court of appeals and highest level court of appeals in France dictated that this guy had to be his food supply stopped.
Mm-hmm. Now, okay, so the food supply has to be stopped. Now that is because he's on their nationalized healthcare system. Yeah, so every day that he's unable to improve, basically, the healthcare system is just paying for his care.
Sustenance, yeah.
So, is there an option for him to be privately maintained? Can because I know in some of those cases in those nationalized healthcare systems, they aren't even allowed to invoke some private methods in some cases.
Pursue an alternative, in other words,
yeah.
That's a good question, because dependence is one of the most important components of slavery, and if someone is dependent on you for something, or you're dependent on someone, if you're dependent on someone for something vital, they have a lot of leeway to call the shots about how things are going to be for you. And that such is the case with nationalized health care, as Mr. Lambert and his family are finding out. But yeah, it was his mother made a plea in front of the UN Human Rights Council, and
so apparently
other people have spoken.
From this source here, it says that his mother and other loved ones had made appeals to the French courts, and this has been expressly and systematically refused, for them to take him home and care for him at home and feed him at home.
So anyway, they deprive you of an alternative when if they're the only game in town, they got a vested interest in staying that way.
Who was the state? The baby in the UK that was born with some pretty serious defects.
Oh well, just a real quick follow up. You know that Mr. Lambert passed away.
Oh no, I did not hear that.
Yeah, July 11th.
God, I'm so sorry because they murdered him. Because France murdered him.
Yeah. So, there's a mentally ill woman in the UK who functions at the level of about a 4-year-old in most ways. But there was a ruling by the Court of Protection that she have an abortion against her will. She too has family that has been chiming in for her and standing by her and having her back. A court of appeals blocked that ruling, and so she will be able to go ahead and have the child. that's kind of a reverse case. Ordering an abortion. That must be rather unprecedented. That must be why it's getting so much.
I don't understand the full scenario. So they've decided that this woman is incapable of caring and nurturing for the child.
Right.
That's the case? Okay. So there aren't other family members available who might be willing to take on some stewardship?
I heard family members, or I read about family members being spoken of in some of the coverage that I saw about it, but I didn't see anything about anybody willing to step up and raise the child or anything like that.
What do you think would be more nightmarish? The state forcing you to abort a baby that was wanted, or the state forcing an adoption and taking a baby that you touched and held away from you?
Well, now you're getting into another set of questions. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Either one.
Yeah, that's right. But conservative that I am, at least life's been preserved is what I'd say in that case. That the child will, how that child proceeds through life is, still.
And I hate the idea of
a question
of a state, taking a child away from someone, which we might talk about a little bit later.
Yeah.
When we talk about the border a little bit, but I understand that there's a certain capacity that's required for for child rearing, and a lot of people who are legally allowed to keep their kids don't have that capacity.
Yeah.
That I've seen, but it seems like if there was a forced adoption situation, again, it sounds nightmarish still, but it does seem like there's a chance for that to grow into good. This child could contribute to the UK. Maybe this is a smart kid. This might be somebody that they really need, and if he or she can't be together with their mother because of a danger to that child, it's not like they couldn't have some kind of relationship going forward unless the state were to block it.
Yes,
So they could have visitations.
That's the key phrase.
The person could understand where they came from.
You bet.
And understand what their mother had to go through, and maybe even be grateful. I hate to say this, but maybe they'll one day be grateful that the state intervened and got them the nurturing that they need. I doubt they would, but maybe they did, and they get to have a relationship through their lives.
You bet. Exactly. So, and this this is a one type of example, but the whole notion that the state deferring to the government as if it has some kind of collective inherent wisdom, that when letting the state become your god, we've really got to see that a sufficient mass of the American populace is convinced of that's a dangerous thing to do.
I totally agree. But I suspect there's no divergence in our Venn diagram there.
Right.
But it does kind of call to mind, okay, when does the state get to play God? And does the state have the right to dictate the death of a citizen in some cases? Like, let's say the death penalty. So can the state administer death in a death penalty case? What do you think?
Oh, boy.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, but I'm an absolutist about a whole lot of things in this world, but that's one where I ultimately it's the state of the power, it gets invoked, and even the argument against it is that even if there's a 0.0000001% chance that the person was wrongly convicted, the state is using its monopoly on the coercive use of force to put that person to death because,
it's sticky, isn't it?
You've extinguished that person's very last chance of ever setting things aright for himself or herself.
I mean, that's something that we have, expressly guaranteed in our Constitution, is that we have the right to life.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And for the state to extinguish it, Again, I'm not trying to make the claim that the death penalty is indistinguishable from murder or something like that. I'm not making that claim, but it is interesting that we give the go ahead to violate that variance.
Well, consider this: a law enforcement officer would be completely worthless if he or she weren't armed.
Right. Well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's completely true.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's
that's where the coercive use of force that the government has a monopoly on. Yeah. That's where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah. They have to be armed in some way. They have to be armed with knowledge. They have to be armed with
okay.
And maybe weapons. But I don't necessarily think that the state brute squad needs to be armed with military-grade weapons. So, you know what I mean?
Okay.
As they are today. So, but that might be a can of worms we open.
Sure.
At another time. But
is there a line you can draw where a limit?
Yeah. But in death penalty cases, that's a good thing, or a good segue. Is that if an officer is in a situation where they're defending themselves or their or other citizens, then they basically have the right to be judge, jury, and executioner, and put a person down, right? I mean,
right. I know.
I hate the state murdering citizens, but I mean, there's also there's I mean, if we're going to be in the real world, there are people who are a threat to other people.
Yeah, and
that threat must be stopped at all costs. Sometimes
the degree of order you need for ordered liberty is the biggie. That is the biggest question. That it's at the top, overarches everything we ever talk about here.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Are we ready for segment 2 here?
Yeah, so
when caring drowns out clarity. When you care so much that facts are secondary and maybe not even worth considering because this is so... What the feelings I have about this are so strong.
What gets me is okay, you have your feelings, right?
Yeah.
How is it possible that your feelings don't call you to act in a higher manner, right? If the only thing that you're feeling, I'm so sad about the situation at the border or whatever it is, but all I'm going to do is get on Twitter and say that other people must do something, you know what I mean? And I just go.
Well, I'm going to get a little psychoanalytical here. And we've talked about this before. There are kind of 2 tiers of leftism. Mm-hmm. There's the ones that are in it for the power from the get-go. History's great. Tyrants, Stalin and Mao and Castro and all that.
Which isn't unique to the left to play devil's advocate.
No, that's true. But within the left, there's that. But then there's the people who genuinely care, and they care. But I think for a lot of them, it's they get addicted to the self-congratulation, seeing themselves as morally superior, and they'll lose that if they don't have a problem anymore. If they go ahead and solve the problem, game over, and they got nothing to congratulate themselves about.
Right, and that's what it is. It's self-congratulation, and I think there is there's an organization locally in Indianapolis, the Indianapolis Children's Museum.
Yeah, which wins awards. It's a
brilliant place.
Yeah.
It's the best. It's the best children's museum in the nation, and it's won awards to say the same thing several times over. It's wonderful. We buy a pass for the whole family every year, and we go 5-6 times or more every single year. It's brilliant place. Yeah. And I often dream of quitting my job and going to work there, and being a puppeteer or something like that, just because it looks like it's so fun. But what they've done is they have joined with other children's museums around the country and created a statement, basically. And the association cited this. The declaration states that children, regardless of their country of origin, have the right to develop physically, mentally, morally, spiritually, and socially in a healthy and normal manner and in conditions of freedom and dignity. Okay, cool. Fine.
All right.
But could you imagine a more banal statement than that? I mean, it's like all children are valued. Okay, Great. They're valued.
I love you, you love me. Yeah, right.
If they're valued,
yeah.
why aren't you... What value are you trading to ensure that they're safe?
Yeah.
You're taking a bunch of money, trade some of that money for someone's safety.
Otherwise, you're indulging in cheap virtue signaling.
That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they call for it. But calling for something doesn't manifest it.
Exactly.
It only... You demand that other people take action, as you've stated several times. It just is going to make the people who could take those actions more resistant to doing so.
Yeah. Well, and then there's some who even the next step beyond that is situations like the Wayfair furniture employees walking off their jobs rather than make the beds that the company had an order for to send to the detention centers along the border and make circumstances more comfortable for the people in those detention centers.
Right, and we talked about the the genuine large-hearted leftist.
Yeah.
I just wish that we could get through to some of those people that in this example their call for other people to act is doing nothing.
Yeah.
It's doing literally nothing to help.
Yeah.
And as in the Wayfair example, it's actually getting in the way of people getting soft beds and pillows and things that they need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So, yeah, when caring drowns out clarity.
Yes.
And we discussed on the air, there are some people I think that are kind of on the cusp between those two levels of leftism I was talking about. That they sort of still care, but they're starting to amass some power, and it feels good.
Yeah,
and
that's a very human thing.
Yeah, and what really disturbs me is the number of people, Democrats in the freshman class of the House of Representatives, who are that way. I mean, there's Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashid Tlaib. That Presley gal, and then there's this fellow from Chicago, Chuy Garcia, and
what's his name?
That's a nickname.
Okay,
yeah, Chuy, I guess you'd say. And we've got a couple of sound clips here from there. Garcia and Ocasio-Cortez both sit on the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. And there was a hearing the other day, and they about the border, and they brought in former ICE director Thomas Homan.
They should rename those to listenings, because nobody's doing that.
Yeah,
and I think these clips that you've brought
exemplify
the fact that our Congress people are not listening during these hearings.
Were we ready to get
cue them up. So we're going to the border first off, right?
Yes.
We're making a run for the border, and we're not getting a cheesy gordita crunch?
No. Okay. So, Thomas Homan, well, the first voice you'll hear is Representative Garcia, and then you'll hear Thomas Homan, and you'll hear the committee chair, I'm drawing a blank, guy from Georgia. Anyway, but he says we will have order here because things are getting heated. And then Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio steps in, checks in, and says, "Yeah, Garcia was just flooding this guy with questions and not even anyway."
Yeah,
the whole thing is pretty powerful listening. Here we go.
Let's have a listen.
These egregious and cruel conditions and policies are not accidental. Mr. Holman, during your time as acting ICE director, deterrence was the order of the day for you. The memo bears that out. Exactly what you planned for. The Trump administration claimed they had no choice but to rip children from their parents because they were criminally prosecuting the parents pursuant to zero tolerance policy. Again, and policies that the administration created and that you, Mr. Holman, accepted, enforced, and championed, as we've seen. Let me remind everyone that the Trump administration tried to ban asylum seeking and started the process of metering, which then prevents people from coming through legal ports of entry. That exacerbated the crisis. People are desperately waiting months just to get in line and be granted the inalienable rights to due process. Mr. Holman, you have said that most immigrants are, quote, not criminals other than the criminal act that they do when they enter the country illegally. That is why I think we ought to revisit decriminalizing desperation, striking sections 1325 and 1326 of Title 8 of the U.S. Code, the statutes that the administration has leveraged to separate thousands of children from their families. Mr. Holman, do you understand that the consequences of separation of many children will be lifelong trauma and carried across generations? Have we not learned from the internment of Japanese Americans? Mr. Holman, I'm a father. Do you have children? How can you possibly allow this to happen under your watch? Do you not care? Is it because these children don't look like children that are around you? I don't get it. Have you ever held a deceased child in your arms?
First of all, your comments are disgusting. I've served my country.
I've served my
country for 34 years.
I find your
this is out of control.
As well.
I've served my country for 34 years, and yes, I held a 5-year-old boy in my arms. In back of that tractor trailer, I knelt down beside him and said a prayer for him because I knew what his last 30 minutes of his life was like, and I had a 5-year-old son at the time. What I've been trying to do my 34 years serving my nation is to save lives. So for you to sit there and insult my integrity and my love for my country and for children, that's why this whole thing needs to be fixed. And you're the member of Congress.
We agree on that.
Fix it.
We agree on that, but I disagree. But I also disagree with your characterization of immigrants as prone to criminality.
Gentlemen, time has expired. It's my time now.
Mr. Chairman,
it's my time.
It's my time.
The gentleman ripped off about 7 different questions designed to
This is
go
Representative Jim Jordan.
Mr. Holman, and Mr. Holman should be given a chance to respond. It was ridiculous the way he just rattled them all off and wouldn't let him respond to them.
Let me say this. I understand that, but first of all, I'm going to have civility in my hearings. All right? I have the floor.
I understand, and I agree with you.
I'm going to have civility. That's why I was banging, so that we could hear each person speak. I have been very courteous and very kind. Now, Mr. Holman, do you have something to say?
No one in this room has seen what I've seen in my 34-year career.
Very well.
No one has experienced what I've experienced. I've saw many dead bodies coming across this border. And you want to talk about the memo? This memo is one option to stop death. Not just about enforcing the law, stop death. If you want to legalize illegal immigration, good luck with that, because it's going to get a hell of a lot worse than that border. If you say, well, great, from now on, there will be no consequence, no deterrence. It's not illegal to come to this country illegally. More families will come. 31% women will be raped. More children will die. We're a nation of laws. If you don't like it, sir, change it. You're the legislator. I'm the executive branch, and I've served my country honorably for 34 years. And I will not sit here and have anybody say that I don't care about children because you're not the same color as my children.
Thank you very much.
Boom.
And now,
Man, I tell you what. I am a advocate for the free movement of people. I don't like the idea of states getting in between people seeking their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, regardless of what side of the border that they exist on. But that was pretty powerful.
It was. Shall we, from the same hearing, his interaction with another freshman House member, Sandy from Westchester.
Official recommendation. There were 3 different options presented. The third included the option for family separation. This initiative would pursue prosecution of all amenable adults, including those presenting with a family unit. Mr. Holman, your name is on this. Is this correct?
Yes, I signed that memo.
So you are the author of the family separation policy?
I am not the author of this memo.
You're not the author, but you signed the memo?
Yes, a zero tolerance memo.
So you provided the official recommendation to Secretary Nielsen on for the United States to pursue family separation?
I gave Secretary Nielsen numerous recommendations on how to secure the border and save lives.
But it says here that you gave her numerous options, but the recommendation was option 3, family separation.
What I'm saying, this is not the only paper where we've given the Secretary numerous options to secure the border and save lives.
And so the recommendation, of the many that you recommended family separation.
I recommended zero tolerance.
Which includes family separation.
The same as is with every U.S. citizen parent gets arrested when they're with a child.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father
Mr.
from his
Holman, with
family.
all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
And here it comes, folks.
When you enter the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum, you go through the port of entry, do it the legal way. The Attorney General of the United States has made that clear.
Okay. Mr. Chair, the memo is is submitted to the record for review. Inspector General Costello, one last thing.
Okay.
It's one of those YouTube clips where somebody put in at the end sort of a boom, drops mic.
Exactly.
Exactly. Holman destroys AOC kind of thing. Okay, so
yeah. We were talking earlier about how much order do you need for ordered liberty. But every great champion of human freedom has mentioned that the rule of law is an important component of that. And laws, as opposed to individual people, laws, not men, is the shorthand that it's always used. And that's the case here. And no country really has ever just flung its borders open. Come on in. We don't have any questions about who you are or how many of you there are or anything. Just come on in, sure. Just like going from across the state line from Indiana to Illinois or something.
Well, there was a country that did that at one time to some degree, and that was the United States, where basically you came in, you told us what your name was, and then we wrote down some data on you, basically, and stamped your form, and found out that you didn't have syphilis or whatever, and on in you come, no problem. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, we don't live in the same world today, as we did, 150 years ago, but
as a matter of fact, the part of the Declaration of Independence that enumerates all the reasons that we had issues with King George, and his bunch in the UK, was one of them was he will not allow those who want to come here from other countries to come on in, and that was one of their gripes with King George. Yeah,
that's interesting. So
I'm not saying I'm not saying that yay raw or any, but it's interesting to point out. Yeah.
I mean, it seems like the root of the immigration issue. Maybe there are many root structures, but it seems like at our current place, the root is that there's not really a legal path towards immigration for poor people who don't have educations or sponsorship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is a process defined for that to happen, but it's so impossibly challenging to get through it. It's a lot of paperwork.
Right.
It's a language barrier. There is a lot of fees in between.
Yeah. How does some subsistence farmer from El Salvador come up with the wherewithal to go through the process you got to go through when you apply for asylum?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Not just asylum, but to legally immirate. Because a lot of the Trump administration and the rights claims are that this many asylum claims are illegitimate. That they're not they don't need asylum.
And something else we need to remember is that there was a complete moratorium on immigration of any kind from about 1920 to 1965.
Yeah.
And the thinking was, we had a flood of people come in from southern European countries like Italy and Greece and Macedonia and all that kind of stuff, and then also from northern and eastern Poland, Germany, Scandinavia and stuff.
But if
even
you're,
some
but
from
if you're
China,
a rich wife
there's an
beater
influx.
like John Lennon, no problem.
There
Come
you
on
go.
in.
But no, from 20 to 65, we thought we brought in that wave from about the Civil War to now. Let's let that kind of simmer and marinate into society, and let those people assimilate and have 2 or 3 generations and become Americans. And that was the thinking, and that's what drove the discussion in Congress to pass that.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I get the thing where people are concerned that when you have an influx of a culture into an established culture, even if it is a melting pot culture, that is a culmination of many cultures.
Well, think how tumultuous it was for the people who had been sold to UK British traders off the west coast of Africa by people in the Ashanti Kingdom, and they had to then come over here, and that whole process was very long, tumultuous, and painful. And getting that,
God, probably the most tumultuous and painful experience.
In history. And the whole process of what it means to assimilate is something we're working out on a cultural level.
Yeah, and I don't expect or want anyone to assimilate. I think it's good to
we have every big city has a Chinatown and a Little Italy and a Koreatown.
There's going to be certain people who do not assimilate at all and just try to live as Koreans or Chinese or whatever inside the American box. And there will be people who will assimilate a little bit and people who will assimilate entirely. And I think that all those things are valid, and because of freedom. Right, it's important that people stay free, and when they get here, they get to exercise their freedom. And if that means that they want to only speak Korean or only speak Spanish, fine. If there's a market force that accommodates that, great. If not, you're going to have a rough time, and you're either going to learn to speak the language here, or you'll navigate the narrow waters that accommodate you.
Exactly, and you're getting to a basic freedom. Freedom exists in a world with contours on it. Now, you don't make your choices in a vacuum,
right?
And that's what's going on there. I want to be able to just stay in my own little isolated community and speak my native country's language. Well, fine, you're giving up certain options that you had available to you in the wider economy,
right?
And wider society.
Yeah, and I think freedom. If we look at it in a very real way, freedom means that you get to navigate the choices that you have.
Yes, and now you're kind of, I don't want to digress too much, but you're kind of getting into people that were born rich or born into advantageous circumstances. It's such an unlevel playing field. Well, no, everybody's got parameters. You dig into any given person's life. Quit generalizing about what a person from the muckety-muck class is like. They are an actual human being with certain issues, and so is everybody else. There's no way you can ever level the playing field.
Yeah.
There's no way you can ever.
You can't level the playing field. No, and I don't think
the circumstantial playing field. You can level the opportunity playing field.
That's right.
Yes.
You can break down the barriers.
That
impede. The force that impedes people from doing things. But
okay.
I speak
a point of agreement, people.
There you go. The Venn diagram.
The Venn diagram. You bet.
I speak a little bit of Spanish. It's not impressive, but it's adequate. And I worked with a lady at a previous job. She'd come around. She'd change the trash liners and things like that. And we struck up conversation several times. And one thing that I gathered from her was that she's worked 3 jobs. Too much beer. 3 jobs, and sent back about $400 a week.
Wow.
To her family.
Wow.
Right. And so someone, once they get on this side of the border, there's no question that they can earn the money it takes to pay the fees for citizenship or the fees for legal status, even, and that they can go through those hoops. But they can't earn it on the other side. Clearly,
you've got to come here and get that foothold.
They've got to get the foothold.
Yeah.
So I think that immigration reform, and I think that that's not wrong about immigration reform. We need a process by which people can come here quickly and easily, pass a background check, pay a small processing fee. I don't know what it is, But I think,
Yeah.
obviously there's going to be some costs incurred on our side. But they pay a small fee. They do regular check-ins. They're not eligible for any public assistance. And then, boom, you're in.
Yeah.
But
Holman's got a very valid point when he says, you want that, if you want what you're saying you want, which is,
right.
yeah, I think,
you're
not, or some kind of easy way to get, then you're the legislative branch. Why aren't you which gets us back to the original point.
Right.
Virtue signaling rather than actually doing something about it.
And if you're coming
Congress
into the country,
glaringly infamous for that right now.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
And if you're coming into the country, then, like he said, the way that you apply for asylum is you come through a legal port of entry.
Exactly.
And then you say, I would like to apply for asylum, and then they'll evaluate your case. And I'm not saying whether they're right or wrong in the way that they choose who's eligible and
but
who's
Jay
not.
Johnson, now, have we talked about that yet?
We haven't yet.
No, Jay Johnson, former DHS secretary under President Obama, in March he said, we were handling 1,000 cases a day and we were overwhelmed when I was running DHS. 1,000 of those cases coming across the border. They're now at 4,000. I can't imagine dealing with that. And then more recently he said the camps and the way they run is something that got started with my bunch.
Yeah.
He said that. I mean, so this grandstanding on the part of Garcia and Ocasio-Cortez and these people, it's quite patently obvious what it is. It's grandstanding.
That's the single thing that drives me the most crazy about the modern left.
What's that?
Is that they are so impassioned about the injustices in the world when there's a damn Republican at the helm.
Yeah.
When there's a Democrat at the helm, they couldn't care less.
Mm-hmm.
They just sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And all of the Democrat elites are complicit. And I would argue, I've had this conversation with several Democrat friends, that you're just ignoring the facts.
Yeah.
If you think that Democrats are any better at this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They've got the rhetoric down, but in practice, I'm afraid not.
Yeah.
The same goes with the wars, immigration, all of it.
Yeah. Libya turned into a lawless hellhole on Obama's watch.
Obama rescinded habeas corpus.
Yeah.
Basically. I mean, he murdered 3 people. He murdered three American citizens, 2 of them children, with no due process of law whatsoever, just being suspected of having ties to terror groups.
Yeah.
No trial, nothing, just
Hey,
predator drones.
Is it about time to go to segment 3 here?
Yeah.
Justin Amash leaving the GOP and the ripple effect, the implications of that.
He declared his independence from the GOP.
And he's very much of a free marketeer.
Yeah, he's a principled guy. I like him very much.
Economic freedom. I think he's got his head on straight with regard to foreign policy. Fairly, I think he's as a matter of fact, he's probably closer to you than me on foreign policy.
I think so.
This is a bit of a touchy subject. Not really. I mean, I know where I stand. It's not like but we probably have viewers out there that are big Trump enthusiasts.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't put myself in that camp. I did not vote for him or Hillary Clinton in 2016. I just wanted the eternal record book to show that I did not cast a vote for either of them. I felt like it put me on more solid ground when I would be in situations where there were some people on my side of things in a Facebook snid or something like that, and people on the very decidedly left side of things, and when they'd bring up Trump, well, Trump, and Trump's got protectionist trade policies or blah blah blah.
Right.
I don't own that stuff. I'm not a Trumpist. I'm a conservative.
Yeah.
And anyway, Justin Amash felt like what Trump has done, the way he's conducted himself, rose to the level of being impeachment worthy, and he called for Trump's impeachment. And
the lone Republican to do so, I think.
Yeah,
right?
and all right, if I got to weigh in, I find that ill-advised.
I agree.
Trump is a loathsome human being in a whole lot of ways, and he has no he's rudderless. He has no ideological mooring. He's all over the map with economics and foreign policy and everything else in the world. Whatever's going to make him look like a winner. I mean, and if people of sound mind can get to him before. Economic example, if Larry Kudlow can get to him before Wilbur Ross or Peter Navarro do, then yeah, Chief, this is going to make you look like a winner. Yeah. All right, let's do it. But so the good guys got to get to him first. But he's just been really crummy to the women in his life, and it goes on and on. But the point being, that nothing he's done has quite risen to the level. But Justin Amash did leave the Republican Party, and his op-ed about it in the Washington Post really he didn't get so much into that. He just talked about how completely ossified and brittle the Congress is. You got these hardened positions, and there's nothing going to happen. Yeah. And he says, I got other things to do with my life.
And I think that's sort of what his opinion was on the two-party system, was that, we're getting too caught up in our teams and specific people. You know what I mean? And you can see that the lack of loyalty to Trump became a really big problem. Trump took exception to that,
as a matter of fact,
and the Republican Party at large took a huge exception to that.
Trump's tweet about Amash, he called him disloyal, which I think has almost kind of a mafia boss kind of tone to it. Yeah.
Well, if you can't see the mafia boss side of Trump, you're not looking.
He refuses to kiss my ring. He's dead to me. Kind of a...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Total loser.
Total loser, you bet.
But the thing is but Amash... leaving the GOP, he's decided he never wants to be elected again, honestly.
Yeah.
But he has loyalty to principle, right? That's
and which this world is starved for. Right. Loyalty to principle.
And I think that's why the left sucks and the right sucks. Not the left and the right, but the Democrats and the Republicans suck, is because neither one of them has any loyalty to principle. Right? When the Republicans are in office, the government grows and the deficit expands, and the debt increases. And when the left is in office, the wars expand. You know what I mean? Like the liberty gets stifled. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when they're not in office, they're the fiscally responsible party.
Yeah.
And when they're in office, they're spending like anybody else.
Yeah.
No principle. But Amash is never going to serve as a public official again until he's joins one of the major parties.
It is to the point where there are crack-ups within each party. There, quite clearly in the Democrat Party, you have Pelosi versus these freshmen House members, and the Ocasio-Cortez talking about. She seems to be singling us out, and we're all women of color, and not so subtly, not so subtly implying that, playing the identity politics card, and then the Black Caucus chimed in and defended Pelosi and said, this chick, is way out of her league and just talking out of her, she's just
posterior.
Exactly, so you've got those kinds of fissures and lines of alliance going on the left, and then on the right, you've got Trump's responses to Justin Amash, and also Paul Ryan recently sat down with Tim Alberta of Politico, because Alberta was writing a book, and came clean. He says, I just could not. I could barely work with Trump. He doesn't read anything. He's completely unprepared, and he's all over the map, and didn't know a thing about how government worked and so forth. And so Trump, of course, had to take to Twitter and lied into him and call him a baby and so forth. You can make the case, quite obviously, Amash and Ryan have problems with what what you're about as president. But no, absolutely no sense of he has no sense that restraint could give him more power.
Right.
That a little gentlemanly restraint and presidential demeanor could increase his leverage. Yeah. Trump has no idea that's he doesn't see that.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of what you're seeing playing out in Amash's actions too. Like he's letting those feelings and those things get out of control, and he's not seeing that a little bit of restraint and remaining in the GOP means he might be able to keep his House seat, and he might be able to affect good change within the government and work for liberty principles. And now, I mean, what's he going to do? Work at a car wash? Like, how's he going to promote liberty?
Think tank. He'll go to work for something.
I'm kidding, obviously, but obviously he's no slouch. And maybe he can win something as an independent, but he's not going back into federal Congress as an independent. No. Especially being so disliked, and if he's in a red district,
there's going to be a significant Trump base that's going to be mighty enraged with him. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You could go in with an R at the end of your name and say and just quote Jimmy Carter the whole way through, and nobody would know the difference. 90% of the people that go to the ballot box, they pull the R or they pull the D, and that's that.
Yeah. Drag that brand name across the finish line.
Yeah, he's going to have to work his ass off to get elected as an independent. But there's some rumors that he might run even for president as a libertarian.
What do you think about that as someone?
Well, if he runs as a libertarian, he's got my vote.
All right.
Hands down, absolutely.
I've thought about the fact that if he runs...
I'm sad to see him do it because I know he won't win, and I want to see real liberty change occur in the world, and that needs to be done by people being in their damn seats in government proposing good legislation that destroys other bad legislation.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Him running as either an independent or a libertarian, though, would give me the opportunity in 2020 to do what I did in 2016.
Yeah.
Push the button for somebody other than two options, one of which I absolutely cannot abide by, and the other I can barely abide by.
What are you going to do? Like, okay, let's say there's not a viable principled libertarian or independent, and your choices are just any of the 20 nut jobs we saw at the Democratic debates, or Trump. What do you do?
Yeah.
Do you stay home, or do you just hold your nose and pull the lever?
To kind of bring things full circle, you think about the principles you want to see prevail in this world. And then...
So when you talk about
with no one present but God Almighty,
your Venn diagram and mine are like this, right? Like they're pretty. The convergence area is high.
Yeah,
right?
You're right.
So the convergence area of Buttigieg or Kamala Harris and Trump are what? I don't even know how you gauge that.
Yeah, because Trump is so rudderless, because he has no ideological mooring.
They could be so authoritarian, either one of them.
Sure, yeah. Somehow, I think maybe it really got going under Obama. We became very executive order crazy in our administrative branch in this country.
He did go a little crazy with that, but at the same time, George W. was pretty executive order heavy.
He issued a few.
It wasn't publicized as much.
Yeah.
Obama got a lot of flack for the exective order thing, and I agree that he should have.
Yeah.
But to be fair, he had
a phone and pen.
He certainly didn't invent that concept.
Right. That's true. Let's go back to let's ask James Madison how that works.
Yeah.
How are we doing?
We are right on time.
All
right.
Ready
to wrap it up.
Yeah. Well, listen. This is for those who are watching for the first time, even though it's episode 10. This is how it works, and we examine things on the nation's plate and the culture's plate and the world's plate from a libertarian and a conservative perspective, and we do it fortnightly and forthrightly right here at the Libation Station. And so please always pull yourself up a stool and grab something to quench the thirst and join us.
And
and chime in. We'd love to hear from you via email and comments under the YouTube thing.
Yes, there's Barney and Clyde Show at gmail.com. You can go to facebook.com/Barney and Clyde Show. Or you can go to patreon.com/Barney and Clyde.
Yes.
And you can donate to the cause.
Yes,
and we'll be able to keep bringing you these. Since
and enhance the quality.
Like
little flourishes like music and
like most trolls, we come to you via a basement. Not Barney's mom's basement, but Barney's own basement.
Yeah.
But one day it'd be
office
nice.
And bar.
Yeah, one day maybe we can upgrade the digs, not the basement. I love the basement. We'll stay in the basement, but maybe we could upgrade the presentation.
Yeah.
And your contributions and support would help that very much.
Yeah. But we'd love to hear your feedback. Hopefully there's some folks at the far left of the end of the spectrum that checked it out and stuck with it, and we'd like to hear your feedback.
Yeah, the best thing you can do if you want to help, you want to support the show, the best thing you could do is share the clips and share.
Yes.
Spread the word.
Exactly. Get the word out.
And we are getting a few emails that I need to share with you.
Yeah, I'd like to see them.
And I want to have that mailbag show really soon. And I'd also like to get some live feedback if we could figure out a way to make that happen with our current technology constraints.
All right. So please join us in another fortnight for another edition of Barney and Clyde. And in the meantime, stay free.
Stay free.